Well, this afternoon, I mean, we just heard that breaking news, that verdict come down, guilty on all 34 counts. I was sitting in that courtroom just waiting with so much. At that moment for everyone in the courtroom, which was incredibly frustrating. But as the jury walked in, the anticipation was palpable. The foreperson stood up and began reading out the verdict. And as he spoke, his voice sounded a little bit uncertain, a little bit shaky as he went through each of the counts one by one and giving the guilty verdict for each one. After that, they were then excused. They walked by Trump's table without glancing in his direction. Donald Trump then stood up, extended a hand to his son, shook his hand, and walked out of the courtroom looking quite somber, quite stern. But not before his lawyers tried one more time to get the case thrown out. They did make the argument that because Cohen on the stand, in their words, lied, they say he committed perjury, that the entire case should be wiped out. The judge disagreed. So now we do have our sentencing scheduled for July 11th.
Probation hearing for June the 13th. I mean, this is just, we're in this, reporting here where none of us can kind of, fathom that this is where it's gone. Christina, you've been, watching this. Can you just explain why at 4:30 again they were going to adjourn for the day, and then all of a sudden they were coming back? Barack Lurie just said minutes ago with Ed and I that it might have been a holdout, that they might have wanted to go for a second day, and then they got a little pressure. I know it's hard to read. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it did seem like they didn't come back and say, it's 4:30, we have a verdict. It was like, we're going home. Oh, wait, we're not.
Right. No, that's exactly how it felt. I stood up because I was about to leave. They said, okay, we're dismissing them in 5 minutes. And a lot of us were like, okay, I guess it's time to go. So we sat back down and we waited. And then that's when that note came in and it said, give us 30 minutes because we've actually reached a verdict. And we just need to be able to fill out the paperwork. Bianca, completely agree with you. I mean, just from observing the jurors the past 5 weeks, there were specific facial expressions, some telltale signs that they would give that made me think they were leaning in one direction versus another. I really thought that they would deliberate into tomorrow. I thought that there were a couple jurors that seemed to me like they might be holdouts, a couple jurors that seemed to me like they just automatically really wanted him to be found guilty. So I thought that the jurors that maybe might have sympathized with his case a bit more would have held out. But at the end of the day, they've been up here for 5 weeks straight, working late on a lot of nights. Earlier in the week, they worked till 8 p.m. They thought they might work till 6 today. Maybe they just didn't want to work on a Friday. I mean, who knows? But
well,
at the
they
end of the
had
day,
about a week off through
34
Memorial
counts.
Day. They had, they had that long break, and
True.
You have to wonder if they were, speaking with family. And there was a concern. I think all of us had heard that, folks had thought, well, yesterday at day one, Juan Merchan said, go home, don't talk about the case, don't look at any news, don't even think about the case. Human nature. It's almost impossible for folks not to think about that. I know there's also this, question now about, Judge Juan Merchan and the jury instructions. They were so confusing. And it's interesting, the process. And I think, Ed, you were listening where she was talking about Christina. Yeah. They even tried at the very last minute to get the case thrown out because of perjury. There they are for the last moment, grasping, hoping that there would be a shred of justice, a shred of normalcy in our legal system today, that Juan Merchan had that opportunity to do the right thing in the end.
That's right.
And even at the very last moment, that door was shut.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and real quick, great point.
Well, what's interesting
we're now
also...
that pardon me one sec, Christina. I want to get your thoughts. But breaking 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, is expected to hold a news conference where we will hear his side of the story, undoubtedly a victory lap for the prosecution, maybe a limited victory lap if this is overturned on appeal. But we will hear from Alvin Bragg in less than an hour, Christina. Did not mean to interrupt, but your thoughts.
I mean, listen, I'm not surprised. He was in the courtroom yesterday. It seems to me like they do want a lot of media attention garnered towards this. They want to kind of milk this win for as long as they can. And to what you just mentioned, what I was going to say before was, I'm not surprised in the slightest that Alvin Bragg is holding a press conference, because at the end of the jury, the verdict reading, right before the judge dismissed the jury, he turned to them and said, "This entire case, I've been asking you to not speak a word record of this case. Now you're completely free to do so should you wish to, with whomever you want. So it was almost like giving the green light to go out there and give news interviews, to speak with people, to let them know what happened inside that jury room. So about a press conference from Alvin Bragg, no, that sounds entirely
He'll
plausible.
do a press conference. He won't take any questions. Because, when he had his news conference to announce his indictment in the 34, it was flimsy, it was weak. It was criticized by many legal experts when this was first dropped. In fact, many thought this would be the last case that they would want to go first. But Jack Smith has had all his issues. Fani Willis, a complete disaster down there in Georgia with the RICO case. Presidential immunity hangs in the balance with the Supreme Court. Alvin Bragg's case, this isn't the one they wanted to go before the election, yet it has. And I think when we see him come out at 6:30, the fact that he is, we know, funded by George Soros, campaigned on getting Trump, this is not the way a district attorney is supposed to be entrusted with his job duties. And Ed, New York, under a situation now where they have to have all the police officers down at this trial, where they have migrants beating up police officers. They have, all this destruction and damage. It is a state, and they should be completely be hammering Alvin Bragg at that 6:30 news conference. I don't think they will, though. I think he'll step in and then step out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Christina, if you want to react to that, but also what's happening behind you? I mean, in recent days, we've seen Robert De Niro there, surrogates for the Biden campaign. I've heard a little bit of noise behind you. Is there cheering? Is there jeering? Have the MAGA people that were there with Robert De Niro, have they gone home? Are they waiting for the motorcade? What are you seeing? Is there any activity in Lower Manhattan?
Yeah, there's a ton of activity. There's a lot going on behind me. I don't know if you can see them, but there are police officers now lined up throughout the entirety of this police barricade. There was people walking out. They were yelling at them, ushering them along quite quickly. They're trying to keep this area as clear as possible. I do hear helicopters as well. I'm looking down to where the motorcade normally rests before Trump gets in and takes off. It looks as if it hasn't left yet. I'm not 100% certain, but there are still some of the cars that are traditionally within Trump's motorcade there. But a lot of commotion. There's a lot of protesters at the park across the street from me. I'm looking up and seeing people standing on the benches, on the tables, just hoping for a glimpse of the former president as he maybe leaves the courtroom through this entrance behind me. But, I mean, he hasn't used that entrance yet, so I'm not sure if he would do it now. He normally uses one outside of the public eye. But a whole bunch of commotion. The energy out here feels very electric as well.
It's just sad. I feel like it's dark. I feel like it's darkness, too, around that. Look how quickly everyone's cleared out here. It's like the show's over, the trial, the sham trial's over. The media wanted that quick hit in the left. It's just it's very sobering to me how this has gone down.
Certainly. Christina Thompson, we appreciate your reporting, not just today, but for weeks now. And we'll get back to you if there's more developments as the evening wears on. Christina Thompson, who's been doing stellar work for us, thank you.